Hey everyone, it's time to Nefis and chill, and in this video we'll be showcasing, with help from Inquisitor Mordrak, the Magicka Warden DPS class. Now, for those of you who don't know, we are going to be finishing up the other classes hopefully soon for the remainder of the patch, so definitely keep an eye out, like and subscribe so you can keep up to date with the notifications from the channel and anything ESO related for the foreseeable future. Before we get into the main setup and the explanation of the rotation, we'll be going over the gear setup, skills review. We'll also be, as always, going over the alternative gear setups. Timestamps will of course be provided in the video description and of course on the video itself, depending on what device you're using the timestamps on. Since its release in 2017, the Warden class continues to be of great enjoyment for many players, and with Mordrak's assistance, the Magicka Warden DPS class will be showcased as having that same level of enjoyment and straightforwardness for a lot of you, while still being able to get competitive numbers. Let's go over the stats here real quick. For the showcase itself, we do have a Altmer, or High Elf, as a chosen race. You can't really go wrong with other choices, such as Dark Elf or Dunmer. For your attribute points, you want all 64 points in the Magicka, and this is for both content and for the dummy parse itself. The Mundus Stone, for the most part, is going to be the Thief. We do have a variety of foods you can use, going from Ghastly Eyeball to other Bystat foods such as Health Plus Magicka ones for content that requires you to do so. You can also do Clockwork Citrus Fillet or Witchmother's Potent Brew if you need a bit more sustain, while still retaining some of the benefits from Bystat stats. Now, Qkiie seems to be a bit lower on the dummy compared to Dark Elf and High Elf, but can still be good in raid, especially in places like Sunspire, where the critical damage passive with the Qkiie could make up for Backstabber being useless depending on the scenario. Recommended consumable or potion for this build will be Essence of Spell Power. Heroism potions can be used in theory on the Magicka Warden, assuming you can run Inner Light on the front bar that gives Major Prophecy, while the Blue Betty will be using can give you Major Sorcery. Let's go over the gear setup here real quick. We do have the rather golden standard of the 1-piece Slime Crawl. We have the 5-piece Boss's Mania and Harpooner's Winning Kilt. We have, as expected for this patch, Kinraz's Wrath on the front bar. As is the case with other Magicka DPS, not just Magicka Warden, the question remains between a Boss's Mania and Kinraz's Wrath setup or a Boss's Mania and Advancing Yokeda setup. If you've been keeping up with the videos, you'll know that for our last DPS guide for the Magicka Sorcerer, turned out that Advancing Yokeda with Boss's Mania pushed out Boss's Mania and Kinraz's Wrath by a little bit. However, the two setups are actually quite close in DPS from comparison and from testing, and on the Magicka Warden we're going to go with Boss's Mania and Kinraz's Wrath. If you don't have Boss's Mania, you will need a light armor set to wear on the body. That's not Boss's. Typically this will be from Best to Worst Sororia, False God's Devotion, and Mother's Sorrow. The Harpooner's Waiting Kilt can be situational, and of course on the dummy there's no situation to really avoid or tackle on where you might need to consider dropping the kilt for something else if you can't keep up the stacks. Monster sets recommended for the Magicka Warden will include Kjolnir's Nightmare, Zahan's, Stormfist, Iceheart, and Dami House. You can also use one piece of Valken Scoria instead of Slime Crawl if there's not enough penetration provided in your groups. Secondary set alternatives such as Burning Spellweave with Solzon's Torment and Grothar for trash scenarios can be good. And then, as you'll see from the gear setup here, and I'll just repeat the item sets again: Slime Crawl, Bosse, Harpooner, Kinraz's Wrath, and Maelstrom Inferno on the back bar. We'll see that we do have 2 medium armor pieces. We also do have all Divines. Bloodthirsty is still a pretty good jewelry trait to have for pretty much most DPS scenarios. Dual daggers will typically out DPS Inferno Staves in melee range whenever possible. Otherwise, you can definitely go with Inferno Staves, or, as we'll discuss here pretty soon, even a Frost Staff for situational scenarios or fights. Be careful when you do take synergies or shards on cooldown, as you may oversustain on either the dummy or in actual fights if you are going to go with Boss's Mania. In terms of the alternative gear you could use instead of the secondary set of Kinraz's Wrath, you can go with Sogvin if it's not possible to use something like Barb Trap or Channeled Acceleration due to the fight scenarios. Another alternative gear setup that not a lot of people talk about these days is going to be Diamond's Victory, which is still good and a solid replacement for Kinraz's Wrath if you often lose out on Kinraz's Wrath stacks. Next, we'll go over the skills, and on the video it's shown. We'll go over each one. On the front bar, as you can see, we do have Subterranean Assault. It's pretty curious that this is a stamina morph. However, it does do more damage than its Magicka counterpart and can be boosted by things such as Camouflaged Hunter, as we'll discuss here soon. So from left to right, we have Subterranean Assault, we have Fetcher Infection, we have Screaming Cliff Racer, your spammable, we also have Barb Trap, and we have Camouflaged Hunter. We have the Barb Trap on the front bar for the Fighter's Guild passive of gaining additional spell damage just from passively slotting a Fighter's Guild ability on that bar. The Camouflaged Hunter does provide major savagery, including minor berserk, should you need it in content, but the major savagery is what is important here for that Subterranean Assault damage. And of course, ultimate on both bars, as you need to have a pet ultimate or pet skill on both bars for it to consistently remain throughout the fight, is going to be Wild Guardian. And on the back bar, from left to right, we have Unstable Wall of Fire, Winter's Revenge, we have Degeneration, Scouting Rune, and Blue Betty for both the sustain and potential use of major sorcery. For champion points, they're very straightforward. For green, doesn't really matter so long as you have Steed's Blessing for most combat scenarios. For the Warfare slottables, we do have an update for this patch compared to the last few patches for the Magicka Warden DPS. Slottables for the Warfare or Blue Tree, we have Biting Aura, Backstabber, Deadly Aim, and Master at Arms. Fighting Finesse and Thaumaturge are situational. For example, if your group doesn't have Elemental Catalyst, you should replace Biting Aura with Fighting Finesse, as you need to be sure that you don't go over or are too under the critical damage cap of 125% in the groups you run with, whether it's for dungeons or for raids. For the fitness slottables, we do have Fortified, Rejuvenation, Balanced Vitality, and Sustained by Suffering, which is a pretty basic layout for a damage dealer in ESO at the moment. Before we go on to explain the rotation behind the Magicka Warden DPS, let's go over some really interesting alternative setups. So the first example we'll be looking at for an alternative setup is going to be as a Magicka Warden DPS doing minor brittle, so you're basically a support DPS. And unlike previous iterations in the past, you can probably get away with an Ice Staff on the front bar and an Inferno Staff on the back bar due to the Destructive Touch changes they did post update 31 or 32, I forget which. Whichever one it may be, this will be your setup. Counter's Nightmare, Boss A's Mania, Harpooner's Waiting Kill, and 2 pieces of a critical chance bonus, whether that be like Kraglins or something. And we do have Master's Ice Staff on the front bar, Precise with a Flame Enchantment, and the Maelstrom Inferno on the back bar, infused with a Poison Enchantment. Alternatives to this alternative setup actually include making the following changes, such as Poison Enchantment on the back bar can be changed to weapon damage glyphs if you need more cleave damage. Kjolnir can be swapped for Stormfist if your group already has someone else equipped with Kjolnir's Nightmare, or you can use Veladreth for more AoE damage, or lastly you could use Iceheart if you need more survivability and AoE damage. Harpooner's Kill can also be swapped for Death Dealer's Feat if you don't have a great kill uptime. And on the screen we'll also show the skills you should have with this minor brittle spec. And from left to right, from front bar to back bar, we have Sub Assault, Fetcher Infection, we have the Clench or Touch, we have Barb Trap, Camouflaged Hunter, and of course the Guardian. Left to right on the back bar, we have Unstable Wall of Fire or Wall, Mystic Orb, we have Winter's Revenge, and we have Scouting Rune and Blue Betty, and of course the Guardian. For a typical trash setup, whether it's for dungeons or for trials, you can consider going with 2-piece Veladreth, 5-piece Solzon's Torment with Inferno Staff on the front bar in the Precise trait with a Flame Enchantment, Harpooner's Waiting Kill equipped on your legs, and Burning Spellweave as an Inferno Staff on the back bar with Weapon Damage Enchantment with the complete 5-piece. Your suggested rotation will be also on the ESOU build page, linked in the description and comments down below for this trash setup. Pretty straightforward there as well. And for the skills shown on the screen, it's Sub Assault, Blue Betty, Pulsar, Inner Light, Camouflaged Hunter. On the back bar, it's Wall, Mystic Orb, Winter's Revenge, Channel Acceleration, and Spell Symmetry with a Destro ulti on the back bar. The dungeon setup will be an Inferno setup, and this will be Stormfist, Diamond's Victory on the front bar with Inferno Staff and Precise Trait with a Fire Enchantment, Base's Mania, consistent on both the front and back bar, and Maelstrom Inferno on the back bar infused with Poison Enchantment. Again, you can swap this out with a Berserker Enchant if need be. We also do suggest a different set of champion points on the build page itself, so check that out as well for the dungeon and the upcoming arena setup we'll discuss here. For the skills setup for the dungeon setup, we have Sub Assault, Fetcher Infection, Force Pulse, Blue Betty, Camouflaged Hunter, Unstable Wall, Mystic Orb, Winter's Revenge, Polar Wind, and Channel Acceleration on the back bar, and of course the Wild Guardian on both bars. And lastly, for the arena setup, before we touch on the rotation guide of the video, we're going to be going with one piece Scoria, as you are solo in a typical arena like Valishran Hollows or Maelstrom Arena. And this will be also an Inferno Staff setup. So you have one piece Scoria for the penetration, Soulzon's Torment on the front bar with Precise Trait and Flame Enchant as an Inferno Staff, Ring of the Pale Order, Diamond's Victory, active on both bars, Maelstrom Inferno, back bar infused with Poison Enchantment, and the recommended champion points is also on the build page. So the skill setup here is going to be pretty interesting, as we are going to be swapping to a mag setup, or you can stick with the mag morph of Shocks, or you can stick with the Subterranean Assault, Fetcher Infection, Force Pulse, the Blue Betty, and we do have the Predator. That should give you both the movement speed when active, and also passively the Minor Berserk. We have the, if you ever get there, but if we do have the Unstable Wall, Winter's Revenge, Polar Wind, and Gates, if you need to chain things in, which can actually help a bit on things like VMing and Channel Acceleration and Destro ulti on the back bar. And some of you will probably ask, why do you have the Destro ulti in the back bar, but the Bear kind of useless on the front bar, because you can't have it on both bars? Well, that's for the Animal Companions damage passive. Now let's get on to the rotation. To begin with your pre-buff and opening rotation, first cast Siege Shield or a similarly expensive Magicka costing skill to dump your Magicka pool down to about 20 to 25%. Cast Channeled Acceleration after, in order to not spend 2 GCDs or global cooldowns on casting a Barb Trap at the beginning of the fight. For your opening rotation, you want to cast these following skills in order, with a light attack in between each skill cast: Blue Betty, Subterranean Assault, Scouting Rune, Unstable Wall of Fire, Fetcher Infection, Winter's Revenge, Degeneration, Subterranean Assault to refresh it, and then a Wild Guardian cast, or your ultimate, and then 4 casts of your Screaming Cliff Racer spammable. And then the next and last step is, again, refreshing your Subterranean Assault. For the dynamic rotation, the skills you need to prioritize casting is in order from top to bottom: Sub Assault, Wall, Winter's Revenge, Fetcher Infection, Barb Trap, Scouting Rune or Degeneration, whichever's timer is up, the ultimate cast of Bear, Blue Betty, and funnily enough, your spammable Cliff Racer is at the very bottom of your priority list. Be sure, however, to use every third skill after Subterranean Assault on the front bar, because you have more stats on the front bar along with Camouflaged Hunter, which gives major savagery on the front bar, which is 10% crit chance for the Sub Assault, which greatly increases the damage from the explosions of Sub Assault, as it is stamina or weapon damage based. If you don't want to kind of remember the priority for dynamic rotation, you can just go with a very simple and effective static rotation as shown on the video. Sub-Assault, Wall, Winter's Revenge, Fetcher, Scouting Rune, Degeneration, Sub-Assault again, and then 5 casts of Cliff Racers, one of which can be swapped for a Trap, or Ultimate, or Blue Betty cast whenever those skills are needed to be cast.
My mirror shows the other side of me.
For your Qkiie rotation, and this is below the 25% typically of a target's health, for the Magicka Warden, at 9% of the target's health, don't recast your Blue Betty. It's gonna die soon. At 7% of the target's health, don't recast Barbed Trap. And finally, at 4% of the target's health, just spam your Screaming Cliff Racer and cast nothing else, refresh nothing else. In applicable raids, use Mystic Orb instead of Degeneration, Force Pulse as a spam ability if you need more cleave damage for your group, and if you need a flex slot or a shield skill to use, remove Scouting Rune or Degeneration if you do need that slot. Also, in actual content, use one piece of Valkyrie Scory instead of Slimecraw if there is not enough penetration provided in your groups, which is a bit unlikely as you are a Magicka Warden DPS. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks again so much for watching. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below or in the ESU Discord. And definitely make sure to check out the written guide for this if maybe certain parts you didn't understand that could be clarified in written form. See you guys next time. Stay safe and have fun.